So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Here we get back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Monday, January 11th. Hope everyone's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, January 11th, Monday. We are 11 days into the new year. Hopefully everybody had a good weekend. Enjoyed the playoff football that came our way. There was a lot of good games on. 6 of them, in fact. About all of them were pretty close other than the Sunday night game, and I would say the later Sunday game with the Bears-Saints, and the Browns-Steelers. All of them were relatively close other than the Browns-Steelers and the Bears-Saints. Both those games were not very close. The Browns came out and stomped on the Steelers, and the Saints came out. It was a slow start. It was a close game, but, on paper it's a close game. The way that game went, though, it was not a close game. A garbage time touchdown led to a 21-9 win for the Saints. It would have been 21-3, but a garbage time touchdown with about 4 seconds left with a nice catch by Jimmy Graham. That could very well be the final catch of his career. A one-handed catch, not a bad way to go out. That resulted in a 21-9 score. But overall, I thought it was a great weekend of playoff football. I thought playoff football was very enjoyable. It was very fun to watch. I was really, I was excited going into the weekend, and I'm even more excited getting into the divisional round. I always say this, you're excited wild card weekend. After you get past wild card weekend, you're into the divisional. Then the divisional really is when it starts to heat up. Like, these are now your prime teams. The Browns, the Saints, Packers, Chiefs, Ravens, Buccaneers, and Rams, and then the Bills, obviously. Now these are prime teams. Like, it's starting to get, now you're starting to really get that playoff feel now. So it's obviously it's really exciting, and I'm excited to see how this all unfolds. Obviously, upcoming this upcoming week, we should have a lot of stuff to talk about. But it was an excellent wild card weekend. As results for basketball, Nets this weekend went 0-2. We went into the weekend with, 5-4 record. Or no, we actually played against the Sixers. On Friday night we had a game. Thursday was against the Sixers. We won that game. Then we had a game on Friday against the Grizzlies, lost. Then we had a game yesterday, lost. So we're now 5-6 on the season. The Nets are not where I'm hoping where we're gonna be, but hopefully we somehow turn around. We got the Nuggets tomorrow, day off today. But yeah, these are the topics for today. We got the NFL games. We'll be recapping all of them. Give you all the 6 games. Recap all of them for you. Just talk about all of them. Tell you what all happened, give you the numbers, give you the stats, just kind of give you my opinion on the game. We'll take a quick peek ahead to the divisional round next week, just to get ready, really get ready for the upcoming week of another packed week of football. Then we got fantasy basketball results, give you the fantasy basketball results through the weekend. Then we'll get into obviously fantasy basketball results, and then we'll also get into the we'll also get into some the fantasy basketball advice as well. I kind of want to, coming out of the weekend might be a little different because I want to share what happened on Saturday and Sunday. Give you the results. I got another win. I'm 2-1 now on the year in fantasy basketball. Now I have my next matchup today, starting it up against another opponent who's also 2-1. So far in my league, we have 1 3-0. 3 2-1s and 2 0-3s. So there's one person that's 3-0. 3 people that are 2-1, so that's 4. Then the other 2 are 0-3. So you're wondering now if those 0-3 people can somehow go up in the rankings or continue to go down. I'm obviously on a 2-game win streak after obviously starting off 0-1. To get to 2-1 is always good. And then we got college football game picks. I moved this up because I want to give you kind of the keys of the game, give you a little bit more of an in-depth look at this game, such as college football championship final tonight, Ohio State, Alabama. So I'm going to give you that, give you the keys of the game, give you all that good stuff. Then we got college basketball, NBA, Nets, Knicks, and Kentucky. We'll recap the weekend of college basketball. Give you the game picks for today. Kentucky got another win. We are now 3-0 in the new year. We are 3-0 in 2021. We are 4-6 on the season. So slowly climbing our way back up. March Madness is starting to look a whole lot more likely if we continue to win some of these games. Nets and Knicks coming off of both losses yesterday. And Kentucky got a day off today. They'll play tomorrow against, I think, Alabama. And rest of the NBA, there's 2 postponements today in the NBA. Other than that, the rest of the league is good to go. Give you fantasy, all that good stuff to round out the podcast. A lot of good NBA games. There's been a lot of good ones. A lot of surprising teams. The Magic have been surprising. Knicks have been a little bit of a surprise. Nets, in a bad way, have been a little bit of surprise. I don't think anyone would expect them to be 5-6 right now. Hopefully, we can somehow turn it around and find a way to play better defense and play better defense and just overall be a better team. Our bench is not playing that good, and as a team right now, we got to find a way to just I don't know what happened. The first 2 games of the season was remarkable. I mean, it's looked everything like the Brooklyn Nets we expected. And now, all of a sudden, things have completely gone right. We are 3-6 since that. So, you wonder what's going to happen now. You wonder what's all going to happen remaining here. But hopefully we can somehow find a way to, get better. So that's what we got. There, and obviously Wednesday's Rangers fantasy hockey draft. I'm planning on probably doing it tonight. If not tonight, then we definitely have to do it tomorrow. But planning on, looks like I might be doing it probably tonight before the college football game, though. And that's usually probably when I'm planning on doing the fantasy hockey draft. I'll share my team then. Hockey Wednesday. NHL starts Wednesday. We'll definitely be tuning into that. The Rangers don't start until Thursday, but opening night Wednesday. I think there's 3 games on Wednesday. Then the rest of the NHL plays on Thursday. So the Rangers don't start until Thursday, but still hockey's back on Wednesday. So that's good. I'll cover it all on Wednesday. All my NHL power rankings, all that good stuff coming up on the podcast. So a lot to get to on this Monday podcast. I always say Mondays are always packed, whether there's NFL's on or it isn't. Usually there's a lot of news that happens and a lot of action that happens throughout the weekend. Obviously with the day offs over the weekend, you come back on Monday and cover it all. So here we go. This is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So as I would say for the NFL and for many franchises, many teams, 3 of the 6 teams were successful this weekend. The Browns came out winners, Saints, Ravens, Buccaneers, Rams, and the Bills. No, 6 teams, I'm sorry. 6 teams came out winning. I'm sorry, I said 3. 6 teams came out winning. 6 teams came out losing. 6 games total. A lot of good games. A lot of entertainment, to say the very least. Obviously, this weekend was a very good football weekend. I thought at times, I thought going into the weekend, it might be a little different because, usually in between like commercial breaks, something I'm checking the fantasy app or I'm going on to one of my sports apps and checking the scores around the league. Usually when I'm watching a Jets game in between commercials, when it's a commercial break, I'll look at the fantasy app, look at how my fantasy team's doing, look at the rest of the games throughout the league. This, I didn't have that. There was no other games going on throughout the rest of the league. Obviously there was, but they were later on, and there was no fantasy to look at. Obviously fantasy season was over. So, obviously I found myself looking at the commercials a whole lot more than usual. Usually I don't watch the commercials. Usually I'm looking on my phone, or whether that's fantasy or checking out the rest of the league scores. And then when the game obviously comes back, then I start to tune into the game. But, it's kind of funny. I found myself really watching a lot of commercials, obviously, because there wasn't many other games on. But I thought it was an excellent week for football. We got, obviously, 3 AFC teams that are going to go in. And then, obviously, we got a couple NFC. We obviously got the AFC teams as well, and a couple NFC teams as well there. So, So, quick to get into the game picks, then we'll cover all the games. I really want to go in depth with the game, so we'll be quick with this. For my game picks, I moved to an overall of 185 and 88 on the year, so almost 3 games away from 100 games above 500. But I went 185 and 88. I had a pretty solid week. I went 4-2 to start the playoffs. So, not spectacular, but not terrible. I mean, it wasn't 6-0. I mean, I was really hoping that Browns won that game, because when I went into that game 3-2 on my game picks, I did not want to go 3-3. 3-3 is kind of ugly. So 4-2 was good. Went 4-2 my game picks. The games I got correct, I got the Browns correct. I got the Saints correct. got the Buccaneers correct, and I got the Bills correct. Got the Rams and Titans games wrong. Was not expecting those outcomes. We'll get into that. So far, 4-2. I went 4-2 for the wild card, and 185 and 88 on the season for my game pick. So continuing to get better, continuing to finish over 500 is right where we want to. And now we take a look ahead. Obviously, divisional round, have not had a game pick yet. So that is 0-0, but we got a couple good divisional games there. And obviously, my whole goal is to get the Super Bowl game pick correct. That is my entire goal. So with all that being said, let's get into some of the games. So there's obviously 6 games. Relatively, all of them were pretty close. Like I said earlier on the podcast, for the most part, they were pretty close. There was a couple of blowouts. I mean, the Browns was a blowout, a couple games, but for the most part, it was pretty good. So let's start off here. It goes in order here from the Sunday night game to the first game, which is on Saturday. So we'll get into it here. So the Browns beat the Steelers. So the Browns won this game 48-37. Browns came out. And I was talking to someone yesterday about this, and we'll get into both teams. Like I said, I want to really go into in depth with a couple of these games. Some games like this Bears-Saints game wasn't much action. I mean, the Bears dominated from start to finish. But the Browns, there was a ton of action in this game. I mean, the Browns look good from the start and look good to finish the game. And I obviously predicted the Browns to win this game, and I want to get into this. So they were talking about this yesterday in the broadcast, and obviously, I was listening today also. I was listening to sports shows and stuff. Also to everything the Browns had to go through this week. So obviously, we all know the COVID, obviously, with the virus and everything, has impacted teams in many ways. Obviously, the Browns did not have their head coach this weekend. He was obviously, he tested positive, so he could not be with the team really throughout the week. I forget when he tested positive. It was someday during the week. He tested positive. Obviously, he got to enter the quarantine period. Now he's got to find out. Sources say, and everyone says, that he should be ready to go. As long as he continues to test negative, he should be ready to go for the Chiefs game, which is their next opponent in the divisional round, if everything continues to go well with the negatives and things like that. So he should be ready to go. But as for the Browns yesterday, so the Browns going to Pittsburgh. Cleveland to Pittsburgh, I don't think is a terrible ride. I'm not a travel specialist, but I don't think it's a terrible ride. But due to some of the COVID concerns, and the Browns, too, remember this game. The Browns, too, had 4 key guys out. They also had their offensive line coach out. They had Denzel Ward out, key player there. They also had a key player on the offensive line who was out, one of the better guards in all the league. He was out. Conklin got injured during the game. Everything was against the Browns. They were without their head coach, without their offensive line coach, special teams coach had to take over, without their star safety, Denzel Ward, without their star offensive lineman. Then one of their offensive linemen got injured in the game. Their coaches had to travel on 2 different buses to the game. The players had to travel on 2 different planes to the game. The Steelers were home. Steelers didn't have any COVID issues. Steelers were home. Steelers have dominated the Browns in the history of that division and that matchup. Everything was against the Cleveland Browns. Literally, virtually, almost everything you can think of. Spread was against the Browns. Okay? Odds was against the Browns. Okay? Coaching was against the Browns. COVID was literally against. It's crazy. Everything was against the Browns going into that game. And that is why I'm so glad to see the Browns win. Everything was against the Cleveland Browns in that game. Everything you can think of. You want to think of, coaching-wise? Yep, that was too. They were without their head coach, without their offensive line coach. And guess what? Their special teams coach had to take over. You want to say players? Yep, Denzel Ward was out. Star offensive lineman, star safety was out. Then you also had James Conklin, one of the best guards in all the NFL. He had to get taken out of the game. He got injured during the game. They had to take the coaches had to take 2 different buses to the game. Players had to take 2 different planes. Players and coaches were arriving at the hotel and the stadium at completely different times. They had to quarantine. They had to test because there were so many other players that tested. Everything was against the Cleveland Browns. And I'll tell you what. A lot of people said that canceling this game would be the right option. I personally really didn't have an opinion on it because I had the Browns. The Browns were the better team in my opinion the entire way. I thought the Browns were just a better team to begin with. So I know a lot of people out there thought that the Steelers would win, but I had the Browns going all the way. I had the Browns winning. I mean, I had the Browns winning this game pretty easily, and I think the Steelers are such an overrated football team. But everything was against the Cleveland Browns, and for them to come through, young quarterback in Baker Mayfield, young team. They're a pretty young team, I would say. He got some younger guys in his secondary. You got a younger, Mayfield, he's been in the league now. This is, his third season. So I guess you can kind of say he's relatively young. But still, he's not very young like he's a rookie. But he's only in his third year. So that's pretty young. You got Nick Chubb, who also got this drafted, I'm pretty sure, the same year Mayfield did. So he's only in his third season. So he's also pretty young as well. Kareem Hunt, you could even say, is still in the younger part of his career. He obviously was with the Chiefs for a little bit there, but he's even in the younger part of his career. So for a young team to go through all that, Denzel Ward obviously being one of the guys that tested positive, he's young. Kevin Stefanski is considered, a new up-and-coming, rising, younger coach. Obviously, he was the offense coordinator with a couple other teams. Not age young, but coaching-wise. This is really his first coaching opportunity. For him to be out, you had your special teams coordinator had to take over. Nothing against special teams, but to beat your rival in the playoffs, to give your special teams coordinator that duty was quite the accomplishment, quite the high level. That goes to show you had a lot of trust in him for Kevin Stefanski and this Browns organization. So, obviously, with everything against the Browns, with everything, kind of going towards the Steelers, all these positive tests on the Browns. That helps out the Steelers, obviously. It does. Obviously, with the Steelers not having to deal with Denzel Ward, you would think that there would have been way more chances for sacks. And I'll tell you what, that offensive line, too, you got to give major props. Mayfield had all the time in the world with TJ Watt, Stephon Tuitt, Cam Hayward, guys up. That defensive line, that defensive front for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you want to know how many times Baker Mayfield got sacked? None. He did not get sacked once in that game. I remember sitting there watching that game, and I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, your Conklin left the game. You obviously already had a backup at one position. Your other star player was out on the offense line. Then you got one of the best defensive fronts in the NFL in Stephon Tuitt, Cam Hayward, and TJ Watt. TJ Watt, who's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. You got those three guys, either him or Donald. You have those three guys up front. You have a couple young and inexperienced. Offensive line has been very good for the Browns, but with all the injuries, it wasn't as good. You lose Conklin, and yet Mayfield still gets sacked 0 times. And that got to give you major props to this offensive line. Major props to both offensive lines, because Big Ben did not get sacked at all. Mayfield didn't get sacked. Mayfield really wasn't even any hurry-ups. He had a lot of time to really throw the ball and had a lot of time to make his decision, make his read downfield. That was, I think, one of the big things. I knew this game was going to be a Browns win. Well, I thought it was going to be a Browns win to start. But I knew this game was going to be, and this is what I told someone while I was watching the game, I knew this game was going to be a blowout right when the first play of the game. And remember this, people. This is Maurice Pouncey and Ben Roethlisberger. They've been together for a long time now. They've been together for a long time. They've had both very good careers, right? Remember, this is Big Ben and Maurice Pouncey. This isn't no new combo with a new quarterback and a new center trying to build coverage. These two guys have been Big Ben's been taking snaps from Maurice Pouncey forever now. Remember that. First play of the game, snaps it right over Big Ben's head, goes into the end zone. They could not recover it. Browns get points. They get 6. Add the extra point. They get 7. Right when that happened, I remembered the Super Bowl from the Broncos-Seahawks Super Bowl. As a matter of fact, that Super Bowl was Peyton Manning's. Actually, no. That Super Bowl was Seattle's, not Peyton Manning's. That Super Bowl was Seattle's first real run at the title. Ever since that, Seattle's been dominant, really, since that, meaning playoff-wise. Like, they've been able to get to the playoffs, really, since that. That really started the whole Seattle and playoff experience thing. Seattle ended up going on to win that Super Bowl, 43-8. The first play of the game, snaps it right over Peyton Manning's head. I think they got the safety, though. It was not a touchdown. They got the safety. And then right when there, Seattle got the advantage. They got the momentum. Blowout Super Bowl, one of the biggest blowouts in history of NFL, if not the biggest blowout in history of NFL. And just like that, boom, Broncos lost, Seahawks won. Right when that play happened, I thought of that play because it got hit. It was the first play of the game and a playoff game with two experienced guys. Two, Manning and his center were experienced together, and Pouncey and Big Ben were experienced together. I forgot the center's name for Manning, but they were experienced together. Right when that play happened, I knew it was over for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns were going to win. They obviously then went on to take the 28-point lead. Things got a little interesting late. I was getting a little, not worried, but I was getting a little okay. All right, Browns, let's go. Pick it up here. Things got quite interesting. It turned into a 35-23 game. And the Browns were fresh off of the Steelers were fresh off of a stop, gave their offense a chance to score another touchdown and make it a one-possession game. And the way the Browns offense looked to come out in that third quarter was ugly. And things got quite interesting, I'll tell you that for sure. Then the Steelers obviously got the ball. Big Ben makes a mistake. They were driving, makes a mistake. They get another interception. One of Big Ben's 4 interceptions. And yeah, that was kind of how it went. To be honest with you, that was kind of how it turned out for this team, and kind of how it turned out for this team. I mean, the Steelers, their turnovers hurt them. They had 4 turnovers. I mean, Big Ben threw 4 interceptions. I mean, that's terrible. You cannot expect to win a game throwing 4 interceptions. He did throw 4 touchdowns, but he threw 4 interceptions. And you're not going to expect to win a game throwing 4 interceptions. 4 touchdowns, sure. You probably will win that game. He threw for 501 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks. I mean, if you narrow those picks down to even 2, it's a completely different ball game. Even if that drive that they were driving, trying to make it a one-possession game, was not thrown, it's a completely different ball game. I got nervous there for a little bit, especially after that Browns drive. They got the drive lasted 1 minute and 13 seconds, I think. And they moved the ball a total of like 3 yards, and then they got the ball back, and then they started driving. I was like, oh gosh, it's gonna be a 30. This game's gonna be 35-30 right now, and the Browns are gonna get the ball back. They are a pick 6 away from taking the lead. And then obviously they threw the interception. And then after that interception, things really went downhill from there. Browns ended up putting up 48. Steelers trailed behind. Steelers made it less ugly, 48-37, with a couple garbage time yards, garbage time touchdowns. But for the most part, the Browns dominated that entire game. If the Steelers have a third quarter like that in the first or second quarter, that game's there. You got a ball game, but that was obviously not the case. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Browns dominated from start to finish, win 48-37. Steelers look ugly on offense. Their defense almost let off 50 points, so that's obviously not good. And really in every category, the Browns dominated this game. Baker Mayfield went 21-34, 263 yards, 12.5 was average, 3 touchdowns, no picks, no sacks, like I said earlier, and a rating of a 115.2. Nick Chubb had 18 carries for 76 yards, 4.2 was his average. Kareem Hunt also had 8 carries for 48 yards, 6 was his average. He also had 2 touchdowns. He had 2 of the 5 touchdowns they ended up scoring, or I think it was 5, yeah. They obviously had the touchdown earlier in the game. Obviously, the touchdown earlier in the game as well. But these are the rest of the stats here. You had Jarvis Landry, 8 targets, 5 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Nick Chubb had 4 targets, 4 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown. Austin Hooper also had 11 targets, 7 catches, 46 yards, and a touchdown. I'll tell you what, Baker Mayfield, it's a brave. A lot of times quarterbacks who use their tight ends, they usually are very successful, and that's what happened in this game. Baker Mayfield used his tight end. Obviously, Austin Hooper was the most targeted receiver, used his tight end. He had 7 catches and the touchdown right before the half. As for the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger almost threw 70 passes. He went 47-68, 501 yards, 10.7 was average, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a rating of 85.5. James Conner had 11 carries for 37 yards and a touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster had 19 targets, 13 catches, 157 yards, and a touchdown. Deontay Johnson, 16 targets, 11 catches, 117 yards, no touchdowns. Washington, 6 catches, 5 yards. 6 targets, 5 catches, 72 yards. Ebron, 11 targets, 7 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown. Chase Claypool had 7 targets, 5 catches, 59 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Schuster, Ebron, and Claypool all had touchdowns. Claypool had 2. Those were the 4 touchdowns Roethlisberger threw to. And I'll tell you what, for the Steelers, man, they got some questions to answer. I mean, what do you do going now? I mean, do you move on from Roethlisberger? Is this it for him? Is this it for the Steelers and this Mike Tomlin run? What's going to happen here? A lot of decisions to make in this offseason. I think one of them might be Roethlisberger's decision. Is he going to hang up the cleats, or is he going to try to give it one more year? I mean, I'm sure we'll find out in the upcoming months here. I mean, I'm sure by the draft you would have to know, because if Roethlisberger ends up retiring, I don't think you can trust Mason Rudolph. You would either have to try to trade for a guy like a Darnold or something, or you would have to look towards the draft. But you don't have the greatest draft position because he finished 12-4. But it'll be interesting, to say the very least. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, and as for the Browns now will fly on out to Kansas City and get ready to play the number 1 seed Chiefs. Next up, this game I'm going to spend some time on, but this game really was not much action. Saints won 21-9. Bears just It's another team. I know I'm gonna probably say this a lot today, because I'll say it probably with Washington too and their quarterback situation over there. What are they gonna do? I'll probably say this a lot, but I'll tell you what. Washington, they got to think of something. Or not Washington. Chicago's got to think of something. I think Chicago right now, they clear house. Clear house, right? Get rid of Trubisky. Foles, sure, if you want to keep him, back up, don't start him. Get rid of Trubisky and Foles. Get rid of Matt Nagy. Get rid of his staff, all that stuff. Get rid of all of them. Bring in a new guy. Let him hire his own people. Draft a new quarterback, right? You went 8-8, so you can't have a terrible position, right? You can't have terrible. I know you made the playoffs, but 8-8 is probably not like. I bet you had to have had a 8. I mean, maybe not. Maybe they got like a 19th or 20th pick. I would imagine out of all the playoff teams, they got probably Washington got the best pick because the Washington went 7-9. So they're probably right behind Washington. So who knows? Maybe Trey Lance falls there. I don't want to always bring up the Jets, but I'll tell you what. I think, this does have to. I think whatever the Jets do could really impact the draft for every team. To be honest, I think I think it could really impact every team. If the Jets take, let's just say, Penei Sewell, then it impacts the Bengals. Then what do the Bengals do? Then it impacts the Falcons because now you probably have Fields and Wilson available. But then let's say the Falcons take Fields, well then Wilson could drop even more, then that could affect the other teams. The Jets have a big pick there, because if the Jets take Wilson or Fields, then the next one's up Wilson. If they take Wilson, next up Fields. If they don't take either of them, then that could really make the big difference. Obviously Bears win 8-8. Saints. I mean, for the Saints team, the way they played yesterday is not going to pass against this Buccaneers team. It isn't. They only scored 21 points. Buccaneers will score a lot more than that if they need to. So the Saints definitely did not have their best performance. But for the most part, obviously, I thought they played pretty well for the most part. I mean, it wasn't anything great. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't fantastic, but it is what it is. And the Saints will play next week against the Buccaneers. Bears couldn't get any offense. I mean, and this defense played really well. And I know. Obviously, and I'm not saying Breeze didn't have a good game. I mean, Breeze still played well. He threw for 265 and 2 touchdowns. He didn't get sacked at all. But you look at this. And Kamara obviously only scored 1 touchdown. But for the most part, they shut this offense down. I mean, for the most part, they did. It's just this offense couldn't do anything. I mean, when you hold the opponent to 21 points, the offense just then scored 3 garbage time touchdown. It's just ugly. So, the Bears offense, I said it going into this game. It's going to be the Bears offense that loses this game. That's what's going to happen. Sure enough, it was. Trubisky went 19-29, 199 yards, 10.5 average, a touchdown. And he also took a sack. A rating of 96.8. So not terrible by Trubisky, just not enough. David Montgomery went 12 carries for 31 yards, no touchdowns. The run game just couldn't get going at all. And a lot of people thought that was going to be the key to success. Give the ball to David Montgomery, let him run it, but that really was not the case. Al Robinson had 7 targets, 6 catches for 55 yards. He had a pretty slow start, kind of finished slow too. He didn't get his first catch, or he had 1 catch for 2 yards. He didn't get his second catch till late in the third quarter. Then he started to rack up some catches, but not a big day for Robinson. Ridley had 2 targets, 2 catches for 36 yards. Wims had 4 catches, 4 targets, 1 catch for 28 yards. Jimmy Grant had the garbage time touchdown, 2 catches, 2 targets, 2 catches, 25 yards, and a touchdown. He had the late garbage time touchdown that meant absolutely nothing. And as for the Saints, Drew Brees went 28-39, 265 yards, 9.5 was average, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks, and a rating of 107.3 for Brees. That this could be his final playoff. This could be possibly his final season as an NFL quarterback. Will be obviously, if that is in fact, if they lose to the Buccaneers, if that is in fact his final win, that's a pretty good high note. But he had a good game, 2 touchdowns. Alvin Kamara went 23 carries for 99 yards and a touchdown. Harris had 7 targets, 7 catches, 83 yards. Thomas had 7 targets, 5 catches, 73 yards. He also caught a touchdown. Jared Cook had 40 yards, Kamara 17 yards, Byrne 15 yards, Humphrey 14 yards, and Latavius Murray had 11 yards catching as well. He also had a touchdown. So those are the touchdowns. So the 2 Breeze threw were to Michael Thomas and Latavius Murray, and then Alvin Kamara also ran 1 in. So that's kind of the deal for the Saints there. And the Saints will now move on to next round, where they get to home game Sunday. This will be actually the final divisional game. This will be the final game of the divisional series. This game will be on Sunday on Fox against the Buccaneers. So that should be interesting. That's the third time. Everyone always says it's hard to beat a team twice. Okay, everyone always says this. It's hard to beat a team once. Saints beat them once. It's even harder to beat a team twice. Saints beat them twice. It's even harder to beat a team 3 times. So we'll see if the Saints go 3-0 against the Buccaneers and Brady. We'll see what happens there. So the Saints win 21-9. Next up, this is the final one for Sunday. This was the first Sunday game, but on this list, it was obviously here. So the Ravens obviously won 20-13. Lamar Jackson got his first ever playoff win of his young career. Obviously, 3 years in, he's played in 2 playoff games. Have lost both of them. Lost against the Chargers that one year, then lost last year, obviously, against the Titans. Got his revenge this year with a comeback win against the Tennessee Titans. I would first off like to say, I did not personally like what the Ravens did yesterday. I understand the Titans did it earlier on in the year, but there was obviously some bad blood between these teams. The Ravens were obviously the better team. They played well. Jackson had a good game. He had the big 84-yard touchdown run. They were able to convert. On a couple third downs where the Titans defense had them pinned back or had them in a third down long situation. Titans defense, I get it. Tannehill threw the game losing interception. That wasn't really on Tannehill. The receiver slipped. If the receiver doesn't slip, that's a perfect throw. Obviously, with the receiver slipping, that gives the cornerback that's behind him the opportunity to catch the ball. He did. Marcus Peters took advantage for it, ran it, ended the game. What I noticed for the Titans here was the Titans had a lot of opportunities in this game where it was like a 3rd down and 8, 3rd down and 9 on defense. And the Ravens would be pinned back or the Ravens would have it. And it would be like a 3rd down and 9 and the Ravens would be able to convert. That stuff is just backbone. That stuff's just backbone break. That stuff just cannot happen. That stuff is just cannot happen. Those plays where you're 3rd down and 8, and you let up that 4th down. That stuff, or you let up that 3rd down. That stuff cannot happen. Cannot happen. And I'll tell you what, the Titans know this, and it was like a 3rd down and 3. Titans know you're going to run the football. You got to read that and send an all-out blitz. What are you doing? You know they're going to run the football. I'll tell you what, man. The Ravens are a very easy team to read. For some reason, they run about 4 plays. They run that mesh route across the middle to either Hollywood Brown or Mark Andrews, whichever one's open. They run that pistol formation where they fake the handoff to Dobbins and Lamar will roll out. Or they give it to Dobbins and Dobbins runs. They run 4 plays. Or actually, I read 3. There's another play as well where it's that little screen route, or they'll give it, or Jackson will run with it and then pitch it late to Dobbins. They play like it's a college game. And I don't foresee that working when they get to some of these high-end defenses. If the Titans' defense was a little bit better, the Ravens would have got smoked this game. But the Titans' defense, the Titans blew this game. This is on the Titans. This is not a game where you could go ahead and say, some people will go ahead and say, the refs blew this one or something. And I can't say that. This game was fully on the Titans. They started off 10-0. A.J. Brown had a touchdown. Tannehill looked good. Everyone looked good. Henry got stopped. They could not stop Henry. And props to the Ravens defense for limiting Henry to 40 yards. He averaged 2.2 yards per carry. His longest run was 8 yards. He's had a couple 90-yard runs in his career. That just goes to show you how bad of a day he had. So Henry obviously had a bad day. And props to the Ravens defense. They were able to stop what I think is probably the best and one of the most powerful running backs in all the league. One of the most powerful humans in all the NFL. But what I did not like from the Baltimore Ravens yesterday, and I said this earlier and I kind of went on to talk about the game, but what I did not like from the Ravens yesterday, and this is not about the playing, it was about the sportsmanship aspect of the game, and I don't want to always get into sportsmanship stuff, and I usually don't, but I did not like the fact that after the game they were stomping on the logo, waving goodbye to the Titans. I know the Titans did it earlier on in the year, but that was also because the Ravens initiated it earlier. Titans were doing their warm-ups, and Ravens started to walk near them, and saying a bunch of stuff. Titans were doing fine. I mean, the Titans were doing their warm-ups and stuff, and the Ravens started all walk near them and stuff, like nothing, like everything's going to happen, and then they ended up doing it on their logo. So a little bit of payback for the Ravens, but there was no need to do that. I feel like, just take the pride in a win and move on to the next round, obviously for the Titans. And then for the Ravens, obviously, then you also had, Lamar Jackson, the entire team just running. They didn't even bother shaking hands with the Titans. Like, that stuff to me just bothers me, and that's why I'm heavily rooting for the Bills to beat the Ravens, because I do not want the Ravens now, after seeing what they did, I do not want to really, I'm not that stuff. Just, I don't like that stuff. Cool. You could be. I mean, sure, you could try. I mean, the guys trash talk all the time. I mean, you hear it on mic'd up when players, go back and forth and stuff. And sometimes it's jokingly, sometimes it's real. I mean, you see sometimes the extracurricular, the shoving and stuff. That's just going to happen. That's just the nature of the sport. That's these guys just being competitive. But at the end of the game, when it's over, Titans were the losing team, Ravens were the winning team. There was no need to walk right into the locker room, forget about everything, and not even go out there and shake hands. Like, you really can't shake the guy's hand. Like, at least Lamar Jackson shaking Tannehill's hand. I mean, at least. At least, like, quarterback to quarterback always meet. At least that. I mean, the two head coaches met, which I got to give props to Harbaugh. At least Harbaugh met with Vrabel, and they've had some bad blood throughout the years. At least they met. Might not have been the most, realistic, great job. It might have just been like, great work or whatever. It might have not been the most, you're such a great coach and stuff. It might have just been a slight, hello and goodbye. But at least go out there and shake hands. I mean, you're gonna sit here and tell me that you cannot just go out there and just shake hands. Like, really? Like, that stuff, personally, I do not like that. I think sportsmanship's a big thing. You also got to, this is a losing team. I mean, I get it, and it's not like it's, I don't know. And especially the part 2 where they were waving and stuff. I mean, I'm hoping big time the Bills, knock them down a notch, right? And I get it. Lamar Jackson set a pretty decent career going here, but, like I said, I don't like that stuff. I don't like that waving and stuff, and, for one playoff win, Lamar Jackson, right? You one playoff win. You don't need to be that high. And I think at times, if the Bills come back and they whack them pretty good, that would be nice. But as for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson went 17 and 24, 179 yards, 10.5 was average, no touchdowns. He threw a pick, 5 sacks, and a rating of 74.8. I'll tell you what, he's gonna have a brutal day against that Bills secondary. With the way it's going, he's gonna have a brutal day against that Bills secondary. Lamar Jackson went 16 carries for 136 yards, 8.5 was average, and a touchdown. Dobbins also had 9 carries, 43 yards, 4.8 was average touchdown. They had 2 rushing touchdowns. That was pretty much it. Marquise Brown had 9 targets, 7 catches, 109 yards. Mark Andrews had 6 targets, 4 catches, 41 yards. And Payne Richard had 4 targets, 3 catches, 26 yards. And as for the Titans, Tannehill went 18 and 26. 165 yards, 9.2 was average, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 1 sack, and a rating of 83. Derrick Henry went at 18 carries for 40 yards, 2.2 was average. He obviously had a slow day there. A.J. Brown had 10 targets, 6 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Fursker had 2 targets, 2 catches, 44 yards, and Westbrook. Let's see, what is this guy's name's going off the screen here. And some Westbrook could kill 2 targets, 2 catches, and 17 yards. So that was kind of the deal there for the Titans. And the Titans also, it's another team. I mean, there's a very good opportunity that that their offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, he actually interviewed for the Jets job today. There's a very possibility that he's on almost every list for head coaching vacancies. There's a very real possibility that he's not going to be with the Titans. So they look like they might have to go offensive coordinator shopping. But yeah, as for the Ravens, they got the win, and they were the better team there. But like I said, just that stuff just doesn't. I just don't like that stuff. On the field, trash talk, do that all you want. That's just the nature of sport. That's these guys being competitive and loving the game. But after the game, when everything's settled down, and hockey's a real good example because hockey's a very tough sport. But after a playoff series, they always do the line shakeup. You could have had a fight in game 1 with a player that you're shaking hands after the series over. Like that's the stuff I'm talking about. Everything is lower now. Like, just go out there and shake hands. Like, you really can't do that. You really can't. Even if it's just Lamar Jackson, be the leader on the team. Be the leader on the team and go out there and at least just shake Tannehill's hand. Like, really, I don't know. I don't want to make a big stink out of it and stuff, but I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, anyway, so obviously the Buccaneers. Now we move on to the Saturday games. The Buccaneers won 31-23. Was hoping Washington would win this game. As you know, I don't like Brady. I don't like this Buccaneers team. I think they're very overrated. But obviously, at the end of the day, the Buccaneers are the better team here. Washington, I'll tell you what, Taylor Heineke had a good day. I mean, he did everything he could. He did everything he could. He obviously threw the touchdown. He had 306 yards. He did everything he could possibly do. At the end of the day, it just was not enough. And I'll tell you what, this Washington defense semi-kept him in that game, but I feel like this was a collaborative effort, this kind of win for the Tampa. They were able to stop him at times on offense, but they were able to also score on the defense. I think at times it was a little bit of both. Both sides of the football struggled a little bit for Washington. You had moments in that game where Washington was dominating on offense, but then their defense couldn't really slow them down. You had times in that game where Washington couldn't get anything going on offense, and their defense was slowing them down. So there was a little bit of difference in that game. Obviously there was times in that game too where you had that big drive, then they stopped them and you got the ball back. You're like, okay, an opportunity here, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough offense for Washington to top this Buccaneers team, who we all know can score and can do well on offense. I can't take that away from them. I've seen this whole Brady and other Super Bowl is just outrageous. And it's another team too. In Washington, they got some questions to answer. You definitely keep in your head coach. I mean, I was on someone yesterday about this. I would definitely go ahead and say, you know what? Give Taylor Heineke a chance. Their quarterback. Give him a chance. Let him go out there. Have him go. Give him a chance. Bring him to camp. If he stinks, then don't do anything about it. Then just release him, right? If he's good, then, see where we go. I think after his performance yesterday, I know it's only one performance, but I think after his performance yesterday, you got to take the opportunity on him. You got to at least go out there and bring him to camp. Even if you draft a quarterback, at least bring him there. Bring him back. See what he's all about. See if this was just a one-game wonder or what. I think you got to do that. I think you got to take the chance on him. That's what I think would be best for this team and best for this organization, is to take a chance on him, see what happens. You could always draft a quarterback or look at a quarterback, but I would say bring him in the training camp, have a competition, see who's better, and whoever your starting quarterback is week 1, you roll with him. If he stinks 3 weeks in, then move on, and obviously then you can see what happens, right? Now you could also be taking a risk at your upcoming season, possibly not having the, obviously possibly not having it. And I don't know what's going to happen with Alex Smith. He obviously with the injury and all, a great comeback for him and all. But even without the injury, I think he wouldn't be even thinking about retiring. I don't know so much about retiring as much as they might just have to get rid of him. But I don't know. I really like Alex Smith. With everything he's been through, for him to come back like that was just unbelievable. Washington just wasn't enough for this game. And for the season they had, obviously they had obviously everything they went through from literally day one, from the name change to now, for them to make the playoffs and really block out all the outside noise was, I think, really good for them. As for the numbers here, Tom Brady went 22 of 40, 381 yards, 17.3 his average, 2 touchdowns, no interception, 3 sacks on a rating of 104.3. Leonard Fournette had 19 carries for 93 yards and a touchdown, 4.2 his average. Mike Evans had 10 targets, 6 catches, 119 yards. Cameron Brate had 6 targets, 4 catches, 80 yards. Chris Godwin had 12 targets, 5 catches, 79 yards, and a touchdown. And Antonio Brown had 3 targets, 2 catches, 49 yards, and a touchdown. As for Washington, Taylor Heineke went 26 of 44, 360 yards, 11.8 was average, a touchdown, an interception, 2 sacks, and a rating of 78.4. Heineke had 6 carries for 46 yards, 7.7 was average, and a touchdown. Antonio Gibson had 14 carries for 31 yards, 2.2 was average. He almost had a day like what's it called? He almost had a day like Derrick Henry. Not a great game there. J.D. McKissick though, he had 2 carries, 5 yards, and a touchdown. So 2 of the 3 touchdowns they had were off of that. And then obviously Chris Sims had 13 targets for 7 catches, 104 yards. Terry McLaurin had 7 targets, 6 catches, 75 yards. Logan Thomas had 9 targets, 5 catches, 74 yards. And Sims also, had 4 targets, 3 catches, 33 yards, and a touchdown. He had the toe drag touchdown, perfect ball placed by Heineke, and he obviously put it in. So Heineke obviously threw a touchdown, had the pick, but the offensive line for the most part was holding up, but late in the game, a couple of penalties and a couple of mistakes resulted in obviously overall the loss there, and Buccaneers move on to the next round. Next up, we got the Rams and the Seahawks. Rams won this game 30-10. I'll tell you what, I said this on Friday. I predicted the Seahawks to win, but I said this on Friday. What did I say on Friday? I said, if this Seahawks team looks like the team we saw in the beginning of the year and Russell Wilson turns into the Russell Wilson we saw in the beginning of the year, this team's going to be dangerous and this is not going to be a fun team to play. But I also said, if this is a team that looks like what they've been looking like the past couple weeks, this is going to be a team that I could very well see get knocked out in the first round. I did not see this terrible of a performance coming by them, but they played horrendous and Russell Wilson looked bad. And I'll tell you what, and you can't blame it all on Russell Wilson because he also had 5 sacks. He took 5 sacks. I mean, for a guy like Russell Wilson to take 5 sacks, with all the years in Seattle of them building that offensive line like that, to have 5 sacks was just ridiculous there. But like I said, with this was, obviously involving with everything going on with, with everything going on, with everything going on with obviously the Rams quarterback situation. Obviously you had John Walford go there. He got a neck injury. And then Jared Goff was the backup at the time because Jared Goff's obviously a starter, but with his thumb not being 100%, he had to play the backup role. Wolford got injured early on in the game from the hits from Jamal Adams, had a neck injury. He had to get taken off. Then Goff had to come in. You would have thought for sure, oh my gosh, this game's over with the quarterback situation they were in, and they still were able to come through. And I'll tell you what, and I'm not just saying this because they won and they made it to the divisional game, but if this offense can turn it on and this defense is playing like it is, this is why they made the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Because the offense was dominant and the defense was dominant. The offense wasn't. Offense was very good. I don't know if I want to say the offense was dominant. The defense was dominant. They also, they did have Gurley and stuff there. But if they could play like this, they put up 30 points. If they could play like this against some of these better teams, they're in a good position. I'll tell you what, it's going to be exciting to see. Because Aaron Donald, if I was a guy right now, I would not want to mess with Aaron Donald. I would not want to mess with Aaron Donald. I would be the first to say that. He had 2 sacks, and he also got injured as well. And hopefully he comes back, though. But I'll tell you what, Sean McVay, this Rams team, looking good. Jared Goff at 9 completions, 19 attempts for 155 yards, 17.2 his average, 1 touchdown. He took 2 sacks and a rating of 93.1. John Wolford went 3 of 6, 29 yards, 9.7 was average. He took a sack, and he had a rating of 63.9. Can't really count that. He got taken out in the first quarter, obviously, with the injury. Cam Akers at 28 carries, 131 yards, 4.7 was average, and a touchdown. Obviously, with him with the high ankle sprain a couple weeks ago, obviously, to see him have a dominant game like that's very, very promising. The fans like that. He had 9 targets for Cooper Kupp had 9 targets, 4 catches, 78 yards. Robert Woods had 8 targets, 4 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown. Cam Akers also had 2 targets, 2 catches, 45 yards as well. Cam Akers played a big role in his offense's success. Russell Wilson went 11 of 27, 174 yards. 50.8 was his average, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 5 sacks, and a rating of 72.1. So an ugly day for Wilson, an ugly day for this offense. Chris Carson had 16 carries for 77 yards and 4.8 was average. DK Metcalf had 11 targets, 5 catches, 96 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Lockett had 4 targets, 2 catches for 43 yards. And Swan had 1 target, 1 catch, 28 yards as well. So, and obviously, as you could see, even with the 5 sacks, the offense definitely stalled there, and the Rams took over on their mistakes, and they were able to really capitalize on them. Next up, we had the Bills and the Colts. This was the first game of Wild Card Weekend. This game was quite interesting. This game got close. Throughout the first part of that game, I thought it was going to be a blowout. I had the Bills going. I had the Bills, crushing them. I had them, after that start of that game, I was like, yep, you can forget about this one. Bills are winning. But that was not the case. The Bills ended up winning, but they only won by 3. 2 things in this game really were crazy. Frank Wright's play calling, the head coach of the Colts, made a couple really interesting play calls. I think if he goes back to this game and makes different play calls, this could be a Colts win. And also for the Bills was the fumble. That fumble by Zach Pascal, I disagree with. I do not think that was a fumble. I think many of you could agree with that. I do not think that was a fumble. He got the ball. He fell. His knee was down, but he did not get touched. In the NFL, you got to get touched first. If someone taps you on the back when your knee's down, then you're down by contact. He was not down by contact. He got back up. He got back up in the motion like he wanted to run again, punched the ball out. Bills got the recovery. The game should have been over then. It was not over. They had to throw the Hail Mary, all that stuff. I'll tell you what, Bills started this game awfully slow. And, it didn't look so great early on. Especially after they scored, 10 unanswered there, or, 3-0, then it was 7-3, then it was 10-3, or 10-7. The Bills started off slow, but they ended strong, and that was the real big deal. Obviously, Josh Allen still had a big day. When it comes to, Josh Allen still had a big day. Obviously, he still threw for 324 yards. So, obviously, at the end of the day, though, the defense made the stop when it mattered, and it's going to be really fun to watch this Bills-Ravens game coming up. I think the Bills have a very good shot at winning that game. Phillip Rivers won 27-46, 309 yards, 11.4 his average, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks, and a rating of 93.5. Both quarterbacks had a lot of time in the pocket. Allen only had 2 sacks, but other than that, pretty good. Jonathan Taylor went 21 carries, 78 yards, 3.7 was his average, and a touchdown. Nyheim Hines had 6 carries for 75 yards as well. He had a big day there. Michael Pittman had 10 targets, 5 catches for 90 yards. Jack Doyle had 9 targets, 7 catches for 70 yards. Zach Pascal had 5 targets, 3 catches for 37. Doyle had a touchdown, 70 yards and a touchdown. Zach Pascal had 5 targets, 3 catches for 37 yards and a touchdown. So those were Rivers' 2 touchdowns there. And as for the Bills, Josh Allen went 26-35. 324 yards, 12.5 was his average, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He took the sack. He had 2 sacks, rating of 121.6. Allen had 11 carries, 54 yards, 4.9 was his average, and a touchdown. Obviously, he had the fumble, but they were able to recover it there. Diggs had 9 targets for 6 catches, 128 yards and a touchdown. Davis had 85 yards. Beasley had 57 yards. Moss had 26 yards. Singletary had 23 yards. And Dawson Knox had 3 targets, 2 catches, 5 yards, and a touchdown. He had the first touchdown of the game. Those were Allen's 2 touchdowns here, and the Bills got the win. So that was wild card weekend there. Oh, wow, we just got breaking news. Eagles fired Doug Peterson. Eagles fire Doug Peterson. Wow. So, Eagles fire Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning head coach, is out in Philly after a disappointing 4-11-1 season. Wow. Wow, that's crazy. Wow. So, Eagles fire Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson is out as Eagles coach per Tom Pelissero. So, a restart is probably going to happen there in Philly then. Wow. So, a restart's going to happen in Philly then. Definitely tell you that for sure. I mean, the rumors came out yesterday about them trying to fire him, but I thought for sure if they would have fired him, they would have just fired him on Black Monday, which is a week actually today. He should have been fired probably. But yeah. But I'll talk about it tomorrow on the podcast without a doubt. I don't got much. I guess I could add it here a little bit. But yeah, Eagles fired Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning head coach, is out in Philly after disappointing 4-11-1 season per Tom Pelissero. So, he's done. Isn't that crazy? How, that's just, what coach are they going to look at now? That's the question, is who's going to pair. I would assume next up is going to be who's going to pair with Jalen Hurts well. That's probably going to be the deal there. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. So obviously that was quite the breaking news. I was the app that I was on reading the games. I went back to the home screen and it said Eagles fired Doug Peterson. I was like, oh my gosh. So obviously he's done there with with the Eagles, and now it's move on. I mean, he wasn't a terrible coach. He'll find a job elsewhere. Maybe not as a head coach, but as a coordinator, he'll definitely find a job elsewhere. I think he'll definitely be with the team elsewhere. Maybe not as a head coach, but coordinator probably there. So this is my lineup. I won in my last game. I won 1,688 to 1,234. So obviously it was a good win there. I moved to 2-1 on the season, and obviously Trey Young. These are my line. These are the players I got today: Trey Young, Bradley Beal, Miles Turner, Yusuf Nurkic, Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Jonas Valanciunas, and Victor Oladipo. Those guys are all. Those guys are all obviously. Those guys are all good to go tonight. Trey Young was day-to-day. Young wrist is probable for Monday's game against the 76ers. Kevin Chouinard of the Hawks official site reports. So he's not day-to-day anymore. He's expected to play. And other than that, I'm pretty healthy in the lineup side of things. My lineup's pretty healthy there. And I'm also looking as well, Kemba Walker. The Celtics are targeting Friday's game against the Magic for Walker's knee season debut. Adam Hills, back of the Boston Globe, reports. So it looks like he will be playing soon. It's just a matter of, when there. So I put him on my watch list. I'll probably pick him up. I'm trying to plan it perfectly because I don't want to pick him up and then have him on and waste a bench spot. So I'm trying to plan it perfectly at the moment. But I'm looking towards tomorrow to Wednesday. Because then it would give me one day where I might have one less player, but I feel it could pay off in the end run to then have him. So that's where I'm also number one on the waiver wire in my league. So it looks like I'm on pace. If I put in a waiver claim for him, it looks like I'm going to get him. So that's kind of my plan there. And like I said, as for hockey, I have not yet done my draft. I'm planning on doing it tonight. If not tonight, then we somehow have to do it tomorrow. And if tomorrow is not available, then either before the game start on Wednesday or auto draft. I'm thinking tonight's going to work, though. I'm going to do it, obviously, before the college football national championship because I want to watch that. So I'm thinking it towards tonight. But obviously, it's just like any other draft. I just need to find. Yesterday, I couldn't do it. Not enough people. And also, I was kind of feeling felt like watching football. Then I turned on the Nets game, so I didn't really feel like drafting that either. But yeah, for fantasy hockey, I'm going to be looking at. I'm definitely looking at some players: Austin Matthews, McDavid, Russell Ollie, McKinnon, Ovechkin, Marner, Carlson, Hedman, Eichel, Jose, Sebastian Aho, Artemi Panarin. Those probably are your prime 10, 15 guys there to look at there. So I'm going to be ready. I've been preparing. I'm pretty much ready for it. Obviously got a list and stuff. I've already used my previous knowledge stuff. This is my first year. So that's the thing. This is my first year drafting, so I don't know. It might be like I might not be the best drafter to start off. But yeah. So So with all that being said, now we move on to let's see here. Now we move on to the college football side of things here. We got the big game tonight here. It could be really exciting. I'll tell you, I'm excited for tonight's game. Let's see here. Okay, I gotta go all the way over here. All right. So tonight we got the 7-0 Ohio State Buckeyes versus the 12-0 Alabama Crimson Tide. Ohio State, third-ranked team in the nation. Alabama, number one-ranked team in the nation. Alabama comes into this game 8.5-point favorites. The over-under is 75 for this game. Broke a record, one of the highest over-unders of the season of college football history, actually, for a playoff game like this. This game comes on at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. It's obviously, usually they do a neutral site, so this year it's at Hard Rock Stadium, which is actually the home of the Miami Hurricanes and actually the home of the Dolphins. They share a stadium, Hard Rock Stadium. Pretty nice stadium. I've never been, but it's a pretty nice stadium. Miami plays there, so they've been working hard on that. Seen some clips of them making, obviously, the field and all that. So it should be exciting. Let's look at the rankings. Obviously, Ohio State came into the season, 6-0 in the regular season. Obviously, was able to get that extra game. They're 7-0 now. Obviously, beat Clemson. It's going to be a fun game. It's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be entertaining. You got two star-studded quarterbacks in Justin Fields and Mac Jones. Two of them could very well go in the top 10, top 15. One of them could very well go with the number 2 pick. So obviously there, and then obviously you also got Devontae Smith, who won the Heisman for Alabama. You got Patrick Surtain. You got probably 3. You got Devontae Smith, who could also very well go top 5 pick. You've got Mac Jones, who could be a top 10 pick. You've got Patrick Surtain, who could be a top 15, top 20 pick at the cornerback position. And you got a guy in Devontae Smith who could very well next season be playing for the New York Giants. There's a very good possibility that he might fall. I don't know if he'll fall that much, but there's a very good possibility there. And I'll tell you what, this game's not only big for these players in these, obviously, colleges and stuff to obviously win the national championship and stuff, but this is also a big game for it's also a big game for some of these guys, like the Fields, Olave, obviously offensive lineman on Ohio State. Jets, we're looking at him. This is also a big game for him. You've got guys on Alabama offensive line. You got guys like Mac Jones and obviously Najee Harris and guys like that teams are going to be looking at, right? This is not only a big game in terms of, for schools and teams and players-wise, but this is a big game for the NFL and NFL coaches and scouts. They're going to be looking at these guys. It's a nationally televised game on one of the biggest sports networks in the world, in ESPN. They're going to be looking at these guys. And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to be looking at it from a scouting standpoint, but, for possibly the next Jets quarterback in Justin Fields, I want to see him obviously end his career on a high note if, in fact, his next destination is the New York Jets. So, I want to see him end his career on a high note. And like I said, I'm not going to go fully on that I want him. I'm not going to also go fully on that I don't want him. I want to see what these other guys do too. If Devontae Smith has another 4-touchdown game, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets take him and then move on to build around Darnold, right? So there's a lot of star-studded guys in this game for these players. It's going to be really exciting to see. But to get into the game standpoint, I can't stand Alabama. I've always said this. I cannot stand Bama. I can't stand him. I don't like Saban. I don't like that team. I can't stand Bama. And I'm also, not that I'm rooting for Ohio State tonight. I want them to win. I don't want Alabama to win. And also, obviously, not that I love Ohio State, but, I would much rather Ohio State to win than Bama, because I don't like Bama at all. I've never liked them. Probably never will. Don't like Saban. Don't like just that team overall. So I probably will never like them. But for the most part, it's going to be a very good game. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be an enjoyable game to watch. I think it's going to be a close game. I know the spread's 8.5 towards Bama. I think it's going to be a close game. I do give Alabama the win. I hope I'm wrong when I say that, because I don't want Alabama to win. I hope I'm wrong, but I think that's going to be the case. I think Ohio State will. I think Alabama will win. I hope I'm wrong, like I said, but I don't know about that. I just don't know if it's going to come down to, the point where it's I don't know. This is my pick. I just think Alabama just seems so unstoppable at times, and at times their offense is just so good. Mac Jones throws the ball to Devontae Smith, boom, just like that. And they also get another player back in Jalen Waddle, who before he had the ankle injury early on in the year, obviously was possibly one of the top Heisman contenders and top draft picks. Obviously, his draft stock dropped a little bit, obviously, but this is a possibility for him too to rise back up because of the injury and all that. So it's going to be a good game. I think Alabama wins 38-35. I take the under on the over-under of 75. I don't think they cover, though. I think Ohio State's going to make it close. I hope I'm wrong when I say that. But I think Alabama wins. But I'm rooting for Ohio State, obviously, to win this game. And as for college basketball, let's see here. All right, so as for college basketball, over the weekend we had Oregon 1, Gonzaga 1, Kansas 1, Texas Tech 1, Houston 1, Baylor 1, Tennessee 1, Virginia 1, Texas 1, Ohio State 1, Duke 1, Creighton 1. And as for Kentucky won again. They are now 3-0 in the new year. We moved to 4-6 on the season. We won 76-58. We had a big win. We had another huge win. Obviously, another big win. We're now 4-6 on the season. We're moving smoother right now. Mintz had 13 points, Askew 9 points, Boston 13 points, Olivia Sarr had 10 points. Keon Brooks, first game back from the injury, one of the veterans on this team, he had 12 points. Allen had 6 points, Jackson had 9 points, and Toppin had 4 points. Those are kind of your there. Olivia Sarr had another big game, 10 points there. Boston looked really good. He had 12 points. He had 13 points. So it was a really good win here for Kentucky. Obviously, good win there. And yesterday, Maryland won, Virginia Tech won, and Iowa won. And today we got Connecticut and DePaul. Connecticut just being ranked, I give Connecticut the win. And as for the NBA, on Friday the Nets lost. On Sunday, they didn't play. Then yesterday they lost as well. But Warriors won, Timberwolves won, Nuggets won, Clippers won, Jazz won, Lakers won. And obviously, Nets lost yesterday, 129-116. We moved to 5-6 on the season. KD in his return had a good game. He had a double-double. He had 36 points and 11 rebounds and 4 assists. Every player in that starting lineup except Jeff Green was in double figures. So the Nets, it wasn't their offense, it was their defense in that game. They played better defense, they win that game. But KD obviously played a good game, but we got to find a way to win there. And obviously the Knicks lost as well. They got blown out pretty good. But the Nets got to find a way to win some of these games. Today the Knicks are obviously playing a back-to-back. I give the Bucks the win, Grizzlies win. I give the Hornets the win, Suns win, Hawks win. Mavericks win, Pacers win, and the Trailblazers win. And as for the Knicks-Hornets game, I give the Hornets the win. Obviously, Knicks are 5-5. I just did not like, obviously they did not play the good the other day, so I give the Hornets a win. And I just don't know if I could trust this Knicks team yet, so give the Hornets the winner there. And obviously the Nets play again tomorrow. Nets got to find a way. They gotta play better defense. That's what the Nets really got to do. They got to play better defense. So that's what they got to do. Defense wins championships. Not always offense. It's defense wins championships. So that's what they always say, and I really believe that's very true. So they got to find a way to play better defense. But yeah, with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. It was obviously a good podcast. Another good podcast, over an hour obviously, so another good podcast. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I will see you all back here tomorrow. I'll talk about Doug Peterson as well tomorrow. And I had an interesting story about, this was the highest scoring season in NFL history, so I kind of want to touch on that probably. But yeah, I'll be able to talk about Doug Peterson tomorrow. I kind of labored a little bit on the podcast today. We'll be able to talk more about him tomorrow and stuff. So that's always good. But yeah, another packed weekend of sports, so another packed day as well today. Enjoy the college football playoff game. Go Ohio State. We want them to win, obviously. So with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast today. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.